Many thanks for staying tuned. It's still the conversation here on Lagos Television. Now, research shows that many democracies need good governance for its sustainability. In Nigeria, democratic principles are also, some principles here also need some of the institutions to, of course, to succeed as a democracy. What are some of those things that we need to practice in a democracy concerning good governance that will indeed show that Nigeria is also amongst the community of nations that holds our democracy dear? We have a guest in the house today, and together we'll take a look at this particular topic. Olalekan is joining us today in the studio. He's a public affairs analyst, or also a youth advocate. Thank you, Olalekan, for joining us on the program today. Right, when we say democracy, and of course, everybody agrees that in Nigeria we're practicing some form of democracy, even though some believe that it is not total. But when you look at democratic principles and good governance, what's your own meaning of that concept?
Well, when you say, we know that when we talk about democracy, we say that it is the government of the people, by the people, for the people. So I also believe that democracy actually exists for the people.
Okay.
And when we talk about good governance, what we are trying to say is that leaders should, put all the resources into use for the people and ensure that democracy works for the people. And when we talk about good governance, what we are trying to say is that there should be a commitment to some of the tenets of democracy, whereby like I said, whereby democracy actually works for the people. What are these tenets of democracy that can sustain good governance? We can say one of them is accountability. Accountability comes into play because in a democracy, the leaders are chosen by the people, through elections, through voting, and all of that. So the people must reap, the trust that is put into the leaders must be justified in rendering good governance to the people.
Sorry, so that you stay on. I like the fact that you picked accountability as your first point, and then you did talk about trust.
Yes.
We know that that is a major factor when it comes to the people and those in government. So, in your own opinion, in the last 2 years of this administration, would you say that this administration is actually building trust in the minds of the people, or are they walking the talk by, again, genuinely walking through what the people really desire in a democracy, talking about trust on the people here?
Well, narrowing it down to the current administration, and I mentioned trust. Also, there is a social contract between the people and those who are governing them.
Right.
So let's break it down, take it down to the current administration. What it means is that the people of Nigeria trust the current leadership, and then they voted them into government. And then can we say, in the last 2 years, can we say that the present administration has fulfilled some of their promises? I'll take us back to the renewed hope policy document, which is like the manifesto of the current administration. And then some of the things included in that document has been fulfilled. For example, the reforms going on that we have seen so far, which in one way or the other has brought some changes in the economic activities of the country, was promised in that document. Talk about the fuel subsidy, you talk about the education loan, and then reinvigorating the economy and changing the face of the economy.
Right.
All of these things and more were
mentioned in that document.
And that's exactly what this administration has come in to do. It's now another case if some of these reforms have brought either hardship or development or progress to the economy. But when it comes to trust, the current president during campaigns moving around said a whole lot of things and then presented a document that these are some of them, these are what I would do, even in agriculture, in different sectors, in education, in infrastructure, and health, and many other things. And some of these things are being fulfilled, already. So when we talk about trust, what it means is that I say this,
and I'm doing this.
and I'm doing this.
Okay, I'm sure that it will be another discussion whether or not the trust is measuring up. Ajibola.
Oh, okay. From your definition of democracy this morning, it's a contract between the government and the governed.
Yes.
You have said so much about the people in government, but the people themselves, do they know what they want? Because we have seen people compromise when it is time for election. They prefer to collect stomach infrastructure instead of valuing their votes. And when these people get to power, we make all sorts of unnecessary demands. Right. I want to pay my children's school fees. I want to bury my dad. All sorts of petty things. So are the people themselves doing enough to put those we have elected on their toes to deliver, going with this, all those demands that I mentioned?
Yeah, you see, one of the commitments, to sustaining good governance is also civic education and citizen participation. And this civic education comes, with what you have just said and what we are actually doing this morning, is that one of the reasons why, one of the things that impede good governance and development in the country is what you have mentioned. First of all, during campaign and electioneering processes, what are the demands of the people? When politicians goes to them and say, vote for me for chairman or governor or House of Reps or whatever, what are the demands of the people? What are the questions the people are actually asking? Are they asking the right questions? And we find out that in many cases, the people are not really asking for what they are supposed to ask for. Like you mentioned, what people ask for is that, in Yoruba they will say kilobadi, what are you
What's in it for me?
What's in it for me? And which is exactly the wrong questions. And somehow, one of the prominent politicians in Nigeria said that they did a bad business in 2023 and that in 2027, they will look very well before they leave, talking about the reverse politics and all of that. So somehow, when politicians comes to you and the next thing is kilobadi, what is in it for us? Politicians begin to see it as a business. And in every business, every businessman or woman wants to make profit. And that's where our issues are. So if politicians during electioneering process and all of that spends billions or millions, depending on the campaign they are running, they also want to get to the office and ensure that they recoup that money and even have profit. So at the end of the day, the people are not asking the right questions. And so this is where, it has to do with the citizen as well. Ask the right questions. Make a good demand. You cannot make somebody you have collected money from him or her during election. You cannot make a demand for good governance from such person because he or she has spent it. People sell houses, people collect loans just to get into office. Because if you go to them, even if you have a very credible manifesto, even if you have a very good plan, and you don't drop the money, they are not ready to follow you. And so this is where citizen participation comes in, and then educate our people, which is the civic education we are talking about, that ask the right questions, make the right demands during election process, because that is exactly what leads to governance. We come to the election circle first, and after election circle, whoever wins, we move to the governance, and administration and all of that. So if during election you have collected all the money, you shouldn't expect magic to happen when it comes to governance. Definitely. Before now thinking of doing roads, building schools and hospitals.
Isn't this where we also need to start advocating for less money politics in Nigeria? Because from what you've created, if I sell my house, I take a loan to come into politics, I will first want to buy another house first.
Definitely.
Before thinking of building a road.
If you sell one, you want to buy maybe 2 or 3 before.
Let me buy one first. Let me first buy the one that I've sold first. So isn't this also, so part of, strengthening good democracy, isn't the time also now that we start talking about de-emphasizing money politics in Nigeria? Are we ever going to get to that era? Because it looks like it's getting worse. Now local government elections is just around the corner and everybody is beginning to jostle, looking for who is my godfather, where does it matter most. How much am I bringing to the people? And so, and then I heard you say it's getting worse.
Yes, it is.
So it looks like as much as we keep sitting here every day talking about making Nigeria a better place, we're not there yet where we can take away money from our politics.
Well, to me, it looks very impossible. You know why? Because the actors, when I say actors, the politicians are actually enjoying it. They're enjoying it.
They're enjoying it.
Yes, that's the truth.
But then can they enjoy it without the people? The people are the ones also asking.
I'm going there.
Okay.
So if the it's just about, you know, a willing buyer and a willing seller. So it's from the two, you know, from the two angles. The politicians are enjoying it. The people also, but at the end of the day, the people suffer for it.
True.
And that's where this civic education and you're enlightening our people. And I ask people, highest, maybe during election, maybe somebody gets, I don't even think that somebody can get 500,000 naira, for example. Max, people vote and say, we saw what happened in the last Ondo election, we saw on the TV how maximum they give per vote, maybe 20,000, 25,000 naira, maximum. And then how long are you going to spend 25,000 in a day or 2 days maximum? So if at the end of the day you mortgage 4 years for 25,000 naira, you know, it's actually, it's pathetic. So I feel that there should be more, from the side of the citizen, I think there should be more education and more enlightenment on the side of the citizen. Like I said, the politicians enjoy it, they don't have any issues. They know that, just ensure that, spend all the money and get to the position.
When you get in, you get your money back.
You recoup your money back. So the people needs to be enlightened and the people needs to sit down and make a decision. I've said it severally that there are credible candidates, there are credible people who are actually ready to work for the people, but do they have the money, you know, to prosecute this election and all of that? So, and people now see, just like you said, people are adjusting for different positions. Now, the first thing you want to go and do is go and get the money first. Yeah. Put the money somewhere first before coming out. Don't just come out. And you are sure that by the time you have the financial chest money,
the muscle,
the muscle in court.
Yes.
Once you have the financial echo, you can enter and ensure that, you know, the money gets to, let's say, the right people and everybody. So, and if you continue this way, I'm sorry to say, what we are, you know, some section of the society are craving for, which is good governance, might be, you know, far-fetched.
So how then do we measure good governance if you cannot really pin a particular candidate to, okay, you promised a particular community in Ikeja that you're going to do this and that, but because you have settled me before the election, I won't have the guts to face you and demand for what you promised during the election. Then what should the National Orientation Agency do to change the orientation of our people away from stomach infrastructure into quality and good governance?
Well, I think what we are doing this morning is one of the works of the National Orientation Agency. They have a lot to do. Even, I don't also think that they need to wait to election process. Yes, 2027 is just 3 years, like still 2 years from now. So the National Orientation Agency has a lot to do and go and explain this thing to the people in the basic way they can understand. We've mentioned figures. For example, if you collect, let's even say if you collect 500,000 naira, let's say, for example, one person gets 500,000 naira, then divide it into 4 years. That's around 125,000 naira per year. What can 125,000 naira do for you? And when you don't collect this money, and then explain to people that this is what good governance is all about. You know, you have schools, you have, you know, the hospitals not actually working for the people generally and all of that. So if you do this and, you know, take it to the grassroots, take it to the people in the markets and all of that, explain to them that your children won't be able to go to good schools if you collect money during elections. You won't have, you know, affordable healthcare and good healthcare delivery if you collect this money during election. So when you don't collect money, you can hold your leaders accountable. Right. You can ask questions, you can make demands from them, and so on and so forth. So this is very, very important. Just like she said, you know, the local government election is coming. LASEC also needs to do some advocacy, you know, around town and tell people that this is why you should not collect money from politicians and make them understand that politicians enjoy it. Yeah. When you collect this money, they are happy. because they know that they've paid you. You didn't. In fact, when people say that we voted him into office, sometimes people look at us and say, "Did you vote for me?"
I bought my way in.
I bought my way in.
Right.
So,
but another angle to this problem is the fact that fine, some will come out and get settled, and some will not even participate at all. They just sit in the four corners of their house and they complain.
Yes.
Voter apathy.
Yes. I think that's even more. This voter apathy thing is even more than people who even collect money. If you look at the figures, if you look at the percentage of voters turnout since 1999 to the last general election, it keeps reducing. Look at, you know, how many PVCs collected. For example, in Lagos, if you look at how many PVCs collected and you look at the total number of votes cast, you will see that the percentage is very, very low. And that's where the major problems are. So if you don't vote, what can you ask? You did not perform, as in you didn't perform. So you didn't put me in office or you did not vote for me. How can you ask me questions? But another angle is that there are ways, even people, so this voter apathy also needs to be addressed. And we have a lot of it across the country, not just in Lagos, in different places. In the last election in Ondo State, we had 23% voters turnout, 23 or 24% voters turnout in total. In fact, don't go to the local government elections. That's where it becomes very bad. You see local government election in a whole local government, the winner is coming out with 6,000 votes.
You're wondering, do people stay in this community?
In a whole community, in a whole local government where you have different communities. So voter apathy needs to be addressed. And when people don't vote, you can make less demands from the leaders.
Because you didn't put them there. Let's quickly talk about strengthening of institutions, because that's one of the things that also could make or mar your democracy. And we know that when you're talking about strengthening of institutions, we've heard it over time that, you know, government must concentrate on not making people, but ensure that the institutions outlive, you know, the people. What are some of the problems that you have seen in Nigeria that is making our institutions weaker by the day?
Well, if you talk about, you know, having strong institutions, first of all, I feel that we should mention some of the institutions that has to, you know, be strengthened. All institutions need to be strengthened, but some are key. For example, the judiciary. The judiciary will always come first. Very important. That's like the last hope for the common man, because in a democracy where you don't have equity and justice, you know, you can say that might collapse the democracy as time goes on, and that's where the people actually have, you know, a say. If the rich people, the rich and the poor, where they go to when there is any issue between them is the courts. So if the judiciary is not strengthened, very key factor in strengthening the institution. So, and one of the things I have seen, I've heard, I've seen around about the judiciary is, you know, welfare of judicial officers and all of that. And that's one of the things that the present administration is doing, trying to, you know, improve the welfare of the judicial officers so that they can look away from, you know, bribery and corruption, inducement and all of that, in compromising, you know, whatever their duties are. So it is very, very important. And then we also need to strengthen, apart from the judiciary, also the, you know, institutions like EFCC, with the anti-corruption institutions, the police, the EFCC, the ICPC, and so on and so forth. So it is very, very important. One of the, we've seen, if you've been following the EFCC in recent times, we've seen that some of the officers have been found culpable in, you know, bribery and doing and all of that. We even saw where one of the officers took away $30,000 from the vault and ran away with it and all of that. And so we've seen the new FCC chairman, the current FCC chairman, trying to strengthen that institution. And they've talked about the welfare and also the NDLEA, all of these, you know, institutions. The current administration have been trying to put up a whole lot of things in that regard. Because when you have corrupt officers in a system, in an institution, there is no way justice will be done.
Okay. There is no way we can talk about good governance and democracy without mentioning INEC, because when it comes to election in Nigeria, INEC is the most important. So what more can be done to strengthen INEC as well? And by your own assessment, is it truly independent? Because during the last election, there was a particular resident electoral commissioner in Adamawa, if I'm not wrong,
Yes.
Who decided to declare a particular candidate the winner of an election without even sending the result to the INEC headquarters. So what more should be done to strengthen INEC as well?
For the case of Adamawa, let's not forget that most of these RO, rec, sorry, are like ad hoc staff. They usually bring in VCs of universities to be the rec during election. So, and again, if you look at INEC, that question is somehow, are they truly independent? Well, the name says that independent National Electoral Commission.
That's as far as the independence man.
So let's follow the name. The name says independent. So with the name, they are independent. Now, you see, if you look at how we've been doing our elections since 1999, we've seen some improvements in the conduct of election in Nigeria. Especially the Beavers has also helped in one way or the other. Before we used to say that when we are waiting, during national elections, when we are waiting for Kano elections and some northern, we say we are waiting for tsunami.
Yes, block
but,
votes.
Block votes. Kano will just come with maybe 5 million votes and, whoever the vote favors, we already know that. But we saw in the last elections that those tsunami votes are actually not coming out again. To an extent, I am not saying 100%, votes are counting now, to an extent. And, I've said that if votes are not counting, why are politicians buying votes? One of the indices is that politicians are buying votes because they need it. If votes are not counting, they won't just even mind, before elections, vote buying is not as serious as this. There was vote buying, but it's not as serious as this. Now, everybody knows that maybe it might not be a good thing to say, but that now you need to have that money on election day.
Right.
To
Could
buy
this also be because of the voter apathy? Is that why it's expedient for the politicians to also ensure that at least they get some votes?
Yes.
Because if people do not go out, then which record
are you going to record?
Record.
Yes. So to an extent, our electioneering process is improving. The last administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, the Electoral Act of 2023 actually helped in a way. But in the area of improvement, people have canvassed for, electronic voting, and I think is in the House of Reps already, and then also electronic transmission of results. And somehow it's working already. If you've monitored the off-circle elections that has, the recent one, which is the Ondo election, results have been in less than, maybe by evening, we already saw almost 95% of results being uploaded. So if we have all of this being monitored and we strictly adhere to all of this, I think there will be a whole lot of improvement in our voting process and electioneering process, which is very, very important because, just like you said, if we continue to get it wrong from the voting process, from the electioneering voting process itself, that's like the foundation of this democracy. Democracy comes into being through voting. You don't appoint, leaders are not being appointed, leaders are being elected. So if through election, we are getting it all wrong, that means the foundation is faulty.
All right, Leko, before we allow you go this morning, some have also said that, for democracy to be sustained, then it has to be a collective effort. But others will also tell you, why would it be a collective effort? It is the business of government. We elected them, let them do their job. So how important is it for that collective effort on all parts, from the citizens, the government, the civil society groups and others?
The media.
Yes, the media, at ensuring that indeed this democracy is sustained.
There is this campaign that is going on in that NOA is doing, National Orientation Agency, talking about the value charter. And the value charter talks about 7 for 7. 7 for 7 means that they highlighted the 7 responsibilities of the government and also highlighted 7 responsibilities of the citizens. So if you look at it, means that 7 for 7 means that government will do their own, and the people will also do their own.
theirs.
And that's why it is a joint
Collective
effort. For example, the government, whatever resources they are getting, needs to provide infrastructure for the people, strengthen institutions, and so on and so forth. The people also, on their part, need to be, an active participation, ask questions, make demands, and put government on their toes to ensure that there is accountability. Also, the citizen has to also pay their tax, because that's where, government gets resources and funds to do whatever you asked of them. The citizen also needs to be law-abiding. And, so all of this being put together with the media, ensuring that they sensitize the populace about whatever, and also the media also needs to put out not fake news and good news and all of that. So all of these things being put together, the police has to ensure that they enforce the law and all that. So putting all of these things together, it is a joint task. Everybody is needed for us to have, the good governance that we actually crave for.
All right, we'll have to leave this conversation here this morning. Thank you so much, Olalekan, public affairs analyst, for finding time to be here on the program today. Jibola, you're up to one of your... Who did you catch now? Okay.
No, it was my phone.
I got you. Dear reckoning, whoever. Thank you so much for coming on the program. We'll take a quick break. When the conversation returns, Adebimpe and Joy will take you through their conversation.
The views expressed on this program do not represent that of the producer, management of Lagos Television, or the Lagos State Government. They remain the perspectives of those expressing them. Thank you for staying with Lagos Television.